Now that Han Xiao had escaped from the Germinal organization, he no longer had access to the resources that he would need to become stronger. Joining the Six Nations would solve this problem. Han Xiao already had a plan in mind. In Galaxy, there was known to be a secret encounter hidden in the western capital. Han Xiao arrived at the gates of a workshop concealed inside an inconspicuous alley. The workshop was nameless, but it had a spanner for a logo. The secret encounter will be mine in this life. There was a chess table set up at the entrance of the workshop. Two elderly men were currently engaged in a game. Their appearances were in stark contrast to one another. The shorter elderly man was bearded and had long, unkempt hair, while the taller old man was prim and proper. Both of them were staring at the chessboard intently. Han Xiao noticed that the tall old man had a missing arm. Both of them paid little heed to Han Xiao as he stepped into the workshop. Han Xiao took a look at the chessboard. They seemed to be playing an intense game of Go. Suddenly, Han Xiao realized that it was not Go at all. It was 5 in a row. What the hell are you guys looking so serious for? A woman appeared from within the workshop. Do you need something repaired? She had a fair complexion, rosy cheeks, and was around 1.65 m tall. Her hair was clipped behind with a black pin, and she was wearing a black vest on top of denim shorts. Although Han Xiao wouldn't go so far as to call her a stunning beauty, she did have an extremely pleasant-looking face. She was very much the proverbial girl next door who had gentle eyes and a warm smile. She seemed to be in her mid-20s. Han Xiao's personal preference. Women at 20 can be compared to peaches, good to look at but not yet ripe. Women at 30, on the other hand, are like ripe grapes. Of course, these things are always a matter of taste. As for women at 40, hey, what about 50? 50-year-old women cannot be described as fruits anymore. They are potatoes. May I know if this place needs an apprentice? Han Xiao asked. For some reason, the woman was overjoyed to hear his words. She hastily grabbed Han Xiao's elbow and pulled him in, as though afraid that he would change his mind. Come in, quickly. You might catch a cold. Han Xiao looked up at the blazing sun and wondered, is catching a cold the dialect here for heat stroke? The workshop was largely colored in black and white, and there was a second floor. The first floor was the working area, and it was a fairly spacious area. There were a number of vehicle platforms and workbenches equipped with various tools and machinery. Han Xiao could tell from the blemishes on the workbenches that they were relatively old. There was also quite a number of metal shelves lined up against the wall that were stacked with all sorts of metals and spare parts. My name is Liu Jian. I'm the boss here. You can call me Sister Qian, introduced the woman. Sister Qian, Han Xiao greeted. He then inquired, I wish to take up apprenticeship here. Are there any requirements? Tell me your situation, replied Liu Jian. Her first impression of Han Xiao was quite favorable. She particularly liked the dead look in his eyes. They made Han Xiao look like he was a bum. He will probably be content with a low wage, she thought to herself. I come from afar. My name is Han Xiao. I'm 21 years old, and I have some basic mechanic skills. You can call me Technician Han. Technician Han? A puzzled look appeared on Liu Jian's face. From afar, meaning you're not a student of the Western Capital School. The Western Capital School was an elite school that only a select few could enroll in. It followed a special syllabus based on the knowledge given to Aquamarine by the galactic civilization. There, students were taught pugilist and mechanic knowledge. Many of its graduates went on to become important figures in Star Dragon. However, as less than 1 in 10,000 people possessed superpowers, having guidance did not make it easier to awaken them. I've only learned some basic mechanic theory, Han Xiao replied humbly. That's a pity, bemoaned Liu Jian. Sorry, I didn't mean it that way, she hastily added. It's fine. Anyway, I still need to test you. I do need a helper, but you will have to meet my criteria first. Lu Jian went to fetch a faulty household appliance back to test Han Xiao. Before Han Xiao could begin, the shorter old man at the chessboard suddenly spoke. Kid, why did you come here? Lu Jian frowned in puzzlement. Wasn't it just to find work? Han Xiao looked at the old man and replied, I'm just looking for a job. For some reason, his reply upset the old man, and he flipped the chessboard. I am the owner of this shop. Pass my test, and I will allow you to stay. Oi, old man Lu, you're being a sore loser again, erupted the tall old man. I have something important to do, stated old man Lu matter-of-factly. Shameless, replied the tall old man exasperatedly. Star Dragon Strategic Defense Division, also known as Division 13. Han Xiao's mind was racing. Old man Lu was none other than the key character in the secret case T-line, and Han Xiao had come here to meet him. However, what Han Xiao had not expected was running into the tall old man here. This old man was an important figure in Star Dragon, and Han Xiao knew that there was no point in trying to hide his identity from him. Han Xiao's original plan had been to gain Division 13's trust before revealing himself. He intended to do so by feeding them with anonymous intel on the Germinal organization. However, that was no longer possible. To have to reveal himself to Division 13 so soon had certainly not been a part of Han Xiao's calculations, but Han Xiao was not rigid in his thinking. Since remaining hidden was no longer an option, he might as well reveal himself and demonstrate his value to them. Like they say, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. Han Xiao and Star Dragon shared common ground. Fortunately, he was now in the city. If he had been exposed before entering, it would have put himself in an unfavorable position to negotiate. Furthermore, the unexpected turn of events might prove to be a good thing instead. The tall old man was extremely influential, so gaining his trust would give him quite the head start. What test? He asked old man Lu in response. Old man Lu looked around as he tried to come up with something. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Pointing towards the tall old man's missing arm, he said, make him a prosthetic limb. If it satisfies him, you pass. Why drag me into this? The tall old man was confused, but he quickly understood old man Lu's intentions from his subtle winks. Grandpa, you're too much. What if you scare him away? Every day, all you do is drink, play chess, and go for strolls. When was the last time you actually bothered to help out with the business? Can't I even get a helper? Lu Jian was disgruntled, but her words fell on deaf ears. Old man Lu ignored her as he looked at Han Xiao for a reply. For some reason though, Han Xiao seemed amused. Are you sure you want me to make a prosthetic arm that satisfies him? He asked to clarify. If you're scared then leave. I accept, Han Xiao happily agreed to the task. He still had the bionic arm blueprints that sat gathering dust in his inventory. Not only was old man Lu's request too simple for Han Xiao, it even presented him with the opportunity to curry favor with the tall old man. For some reason, everything seemed to be going well for Han Xiao, as though someone was looking out for him. You only have 3 hours, I don't have the time to wait an entire day, old man Lu snorted. Grandpa! Lu Jian exclaimed in protest. Creating a bionic limb was not a straightforward task. Measurements first had to be taken, followed by designing, and lastly crafting. Designing alone would take hours, and while using a workbench would speed up much of the crafting process, that would still take another 2 hours. It was completely unfair. However, Han Xiao was not flustered at all. He whipped out a measuring tape and asked the tall old man politely, Senior, may I? The tall old man removed his outerwear without fuss. He observed Han Xiao thoughtfully as his measurements were taken. To remain calm and confident despite being pressed so was praiseworthy, he thought. But why would the Germinal organization lay $1 million bounty on him? Yes, the tall old man indeed recognized Han Xiao. The germinal organization's issuing of a bounty had caused a huge commotion in the underworld, and this resulted in Han Xiao's face becoming well known. Such news did not escape his ears. Looks like there's some corrupt guards again, he concluded from Han Xiao's presence here in the city. Why did Han Xiao come to the western capital? Does he pose a threat to Star Dragon? These were the questions on the tall old man's mind. He decided to continue observing Han Xiao for now. While old man Lu did not know anything about the infamous Zero, he had his reason for wanting to chase Han Xiao away. A seasoned veteran himself, he was able to sense that Han Xiao had killed before. He simply wanted to avoid trouble where he could. Looks like old Lu is leaving it to me, thought the tall old man as the pair exchanged glances. As soon as Han Xiao finished taking measurements, Lu Jian offered him her help. Tell me your concept. We can draw up the plans together to save time. No need, I already have the perfect design, declined Han Xiao unexpectedly. Only 2 minutes. Lu Jian's eyes were wide with disbelief. Your bragging might even reach the moon. Old man Lu burst out in laughter. To come up with a complete blueprint in just 2 minutes was an impossible task even for him, what more a kid like Han Xiao. Han Xiao passed a list of the materials and tools he needed to Lu Jian, who swiftly went to fetch everything. However, she did not hold much hope for Han Xiao as the test was simply absurd and unfair. Han Xiao started to use the pressing machine to shape metals into shapes and parts. He planned to use an aluminum alloy as the core material of the arm, as aluminum alloys were light, yet sturdy, but also easy to shape. Having parts like screws, rivets, and chains readily provided saved him a lot of time. Basic machinery affinity gave Han Xiao keen intuition for the composition of machines. For a second, it seemed to him like the parts themselves came to life, as though they were excited at the prospect of being assembled into a machine. A mechanic's affinity and skills with machines was extremely important. Each level in basic machinery affinity improved production quantity as well as crafting speed by 1%. A top-class bionic limb could be operated simply by thought, and would be functionally indiscernible from a real limb. The prosthetic arm of the Winter Soldier was a strengthened version of such a limb. However, the installation of such a prosthetic would require surgery, as well as the control talents of basic electromagnetism and nerve integration. With cybernetics, it was possible to replace any part of the body, except the brain, with machines to turn a person into a cyborg that relies not on physical stamina and bioenergy, but modular upgrades and replacements instead. Although a cyborg wouldn't need to eat or drink to survive, and could live much longer than a normal human, the loss of one's human senses would gradually make a cyborg susceptible to manipulation and eventually cause them to lose their sense of self. While this could be prevented by implementing thought programming and logic parameters to immunize one against external influences, they would then lose their freedom of thought instead. More advanced civilizations used this method to produce cannon fodder. A voice-controlled prosthetic could also be made with the control talent, basic acoustics. Mechanics were a multi-layered class that was able to utilize all sorts of knowledge to create different versions of tools for the same purpose. Presently, though, Han Xiao was not that far advanced as a mechanic, and his concept was very simple. He was using the lightweight mechanical arm as a model for his prosthetic. He planned to incorporate its dynamics and chains into his prosthetic for realistic movement. Unlike the lightweight mechanical arm, however, it would run on clean batteries instead of smoke-causing fuel. Old man Lu watched Han Xiao as he enjoyed a bottle of beer. He couldn't wait to see him make a fool of himself.